On July 28, 2025, a desperate call for help cut through the thin air high on a remote peak in Pakistan's Karakoram range. The call came from nearly 19,000 feet up the treacherous slopes of Laila Peak, a mountain known for its severe, dagger-like beauty and its constant dangers. On that wall of ice and rock, one of the world's most accomplished athletes, a double Olympic champion, lay motionless. Just hours before, she was full of life, pursuing the one great passion that had defined her ever since she stepped away from the global spotlight. Now, she was gone. This is the story of Laura Dahlmeier, a German sports hero who dominated the world of biathlon only to leave it all behind for her true love, the mountains. It's the story of her final, ambitious climb, the split second that ended her life, and the remarkable final wish she left behind, a message that said everything about the person she was, and a request that would force rescuers to make an impossible choice on the mountain she loved. The first reports were a mess, fragmented and confused. A rockfall, a world-famous climber seriously injured. As news trickled out from the remote Hush Valley, a sense of dread settled over the sports and mountaineering worlds. Rescue operations were launched immediately, a frantic race against time in one of the planet's most hostile environments. But the mountain wasn't cooperating. Bad weather, low visibility, and the continued risk of falling rock and ice made any approach a life-threatening gamble. For 2 days, the world held its breath. When confirmation finally came, the news was the worst imaginable. Laura Dahlmeier, just 31 years old, was gone. But the tragedy was deepened by a powerful revelation, one that came from Laura herself. She had left a documented wish, a final directive that if she ever perished on a mountain, no one should risk their life to recover her body. She was to be left where she fell. Her final resting place was to be the very place that claimed her. To understand the weight of this loss, you have to understand who Laura Dahlmeier was. Long before she was a high-altitude mountaineer, she was a phenomenon in winter sports. Born in the Bavarian ski town of Garmisch-Partenkirchen, the German Alps weren't just her backyard, they were her soul. That connection to snow and mountains was the foundation of her incredible career in biathlon, the grueling sport that combines the exhaustion of cross-country skiing with the intense pressure of marksmanship. Dahlmeier didn't just compete in biathlon, she conquered it. She hit the World Cup circuit at just 19 and quickly rose through the ranks. The peak of her career was a period of breathtaking dominance. In the 2016-17 season, she claimed the overall World Cup title. At the 2017 World Championships, she did something historic, winning 5 gold medals and a silver, a display of brilliance that left everyone in awe. But it was at the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang that she cemented her legacy. There, she became the first female biathlete ever to win gold in both the sprint and pursuit events at the same games. She returned home a national hero, one of the most successful German winter athletes of all time. She had won it all, 2 Olympic golds, 7 World Championship titles, and a room full of trophies. She was at the absolute top of her sport. And then, in a move that shocked everyone, she walked away. In May 2019, at just 25 years old, Laura Dahlmeier announced her retirement. She said she was exhausted, physically and mentally, and that she no longer had the 100% passion needed to compete. For Dahlmeier, the hunt for medals had lost its meaning. The freedom she wanted wasn't on a podium, but in the vast, silent cathedrals of rock and ice. She traded her rifle and skis for ice axes and ropes, and turned her full attention to her first and truest love, mountaineering. This wasn't just a hobby, it was a second career, and she pursued it with the same fire that made her an Olympic champion. She didn't just climb, she excelled. She competed in world-class mountain running events, like the Zugspitze Ultra Trail and the Karwendelmarsch race. She became a state-certified mountain and ski guide in 2023, and even volunteered for the Garmisch-Partenkirchen Mountain Rescue Team, using her skills to help others in the environment she loved most. Her ambitions grew with her experience. She began venturing far beyond the Alps, tackling some of the world's most challenging peaks, including a formidable ascent of Amadablam in Nepal. This was a clear statement. Laura Dahlmeier wasn't just a former biathlete who liked to climb, she was a world-class alpinist on a new path, driven by a desire for freedom, a path that would ultimately lead her to Pakistan and to the beautiful, treacherous mountain that had captured her imagination. In the summer of 2025, Laura Dahlmeier traveled to Pakistan's Karakoram range, home to some of the highest and most difficult mountains on Earth. Her trip was already a success. She had summited the Great Trango Tower, a massive and technically demanding granite spire, but another mountain held a special place in her heart. According to her friend, elite climber Thomas Huber, there was one peak she always raved about, Leila Peak. Leila Peak isn't one of the world's 8,000-meter giants, but what it lacks in height, it makes up for in beauty and difficulty. Rising to just under 20,000 feet, its northwest face is a stunning, near-perfect spear of rock and ice. It's beautiful, but it's also incredibly dangerous. The terrain is steep with technical ice faces and, most critically, frequent and unpredictable rockfall. The weather is also notoriously volatile, able to trap climbers in an instant. For this challenge, Dahlmeier wasn't alone. She was climbing with her trusted rope partner, Marina Kraus, another experienced mountaineer from Germany. They were climbing alpine style, fast and light, carrying all their gear in a single push with no fixed ropes or backup camps. It's the purest form of mountaineering, but it's also the riskiest, as you are completely on your own. The plan was to push for the summit at night to take advantage of colder, more stable conditions. As they moved up the mountain's sharp spine, Dahlmeier was in her element. She sent messages to her friend Thomas Huber, telling him they were having the best time. He later recalled, "When she goes into the mountains, she was beaming. It's her life." But as they neared the top, conditions turned against them. The snow grew soft and deep, and the weather started to close in. Just below the summit, with their goal so close, Dahlmeier and Kraus made the tough but professional call, the kind that separates smart climbers from reckless ones. The risk was too high. It was time to turn back. The most dangerous part of any climb was still ahead, getting down. Getting down from a high-altitude peak is often more dangerous than going up. You're exhausted, your focus can slip, and gravity is a relentless enemy. For Dahlmeier and Kraus, the retreat from just below Leila Peak's summit involved a series of rappels down the steep face. They would drill anchors into the ice, secure their ropes, and lower themselves down, section by section. It's a methodical, high-stakes process. They started their descent from about 18,700 feet. Marina Kraus rappelled first, with Laura Dahlmeier set to follow. They completed 2 rappels safely, carefully moving down the mountain. As they began the third, the dangers of Leila Peak exploded. Without warning, a massive rockfall began. High-altitude rockfall is like random, deadly artillery. Rocks can be dislodged by melting ice or changing temperatures, accelerating down steep slopes and becoming lethal projectiles. Kraus was already at the bottom of the rope, out of the direct line of fire, when the chaos erupted above. Dahlmeier was mid-rappel, completely exposed. A huge rock broke free and hurtled directly towards her. The impact was devastating, striking her and throwing her against the mountain wall. From that moment, she never moved again. Below, Marina Kraus witnessed the horror. She screamed her partner's name into the wind, but there was no response. She was now alone, high on a deadly peak, with her friend hanging motionless on the rope above her. The terrain was incredibly difficult, and with the constant risk of more rockfall, any attempt to reach Laura would have been suicidal. Kraus tried for hours to find a safe way to her, but the mountain was relentless. In a state of shock, she knew there was only one thing she could do. She had to get down and call for a helicopter. As darkness fell, Kraus made the harrowing choice to retreat, continuing her solo rappel down the mountain to get help. Marina Kraus's distress call from the mountain triggered a massive response. The news of a serious accident involving an Olympic champion spread like wildfire through the climbing community. An international rescue team was mobilized, including local high-altitude porters and some of the world's best climbers who happened to be nearby. Among them was Thomas Huber, Laura's friend, who immediately offered to help. American climbers Jackson Marvel and Alan Rousseau also abandoned their own expedition to join the effort. But the mountain was still in control. The remote location and severe weather made an immediate helicopter flight impossible. For a full day, they were grounded by heavy rain and wind. On the morning of July 29th, a break in the weather finally allowed a helicopter to fly. The pilots located Laura's position on the mountain, but what they saw confirmed everyone's worst fears. There were no signs of life. Despite the grim outlook, the ground team pressed on. They were airlifted to base camp to try a ground rescue. But the conditions on Leila Peak were deemed too treacherous. The constant threat of more rockfall and the sheer difficulty of the route made a recovery operation incredibly risky. After 2 days of valiant efforts being blocked by the mountain, the operation was officially called off. Her management team confirmed the tragic reality. Based on the helicopter flyover and Marina Kraus's harrowing eyewitness account, it was concluded that Laura Dahlmeier had died instantly. The world began to mourn, but then came the second, deeply poignant part of the announcement. Her management, with her family's support, revealed that no further attempts would be made to retrieve her body. This wasn't just because it was too dangerous. It was because they were honoring her final wish. Laura Dahlmeier, an experienced mountaineer who knew the risks of her passion better than anyone, had left a formal written will. Her directive was clear: If she died in a fatal accident on a mountain, no one should risk their life to recover her remains. Her family, in their grief, asked that everyone respect Laura's last will. As Thomas Huber explained, "We decided to respect Laura's last wish. She didn't want anyone to risk his or her life to retrieve her." Another rescuer, Jackson Marvel, stated it would be disrespectful to ignore her wishes, admitting that while a recovery might be possible, it would involve incredible risks. And so Laura Dahlmeier remains on Leila Peak. Her body rests on the beautiful, formidable mountain that she had dreamed of. A place where, as her climbing partner said, she now rests in a beautiful mountain. The news of Laura Dahlmeier's death sent shockwaves across the globe. Tributes poured in from the highest levels of sport and government. The International Olympic Committee mourned the loss of a trailblazer. The International Biathlon Union honored her as an inspiration. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier remembered her as an exceptional sportswoman and an ambassador for our country and the world. Her legacy is really about two things. First, there's the athlete, a biathlon prodigy with immense talent who reached the absolute pinnacle of her sport. Her Olympic golds and world championship titles are a permanent record of her greatness. But her more enduring legacy might be that of the person who had the courage to follow her heart. She showed the world that there's bravery not just in winning, but in knowing when to walk away to chase a deeper, more personal passion. She chose freedom over fame and fulfillment over medals. Her final wish is a powerful testament to her character. It shows a profound respect for nature and a deep selflessness. Even in thinking about her own death, her main concern was for the safety of others. She understood the code of the mountains, that the lives of rescuers should never be gambled for those already lost. It was a final act of responsibility from a woman who had become a certified mountain guide and volunteer rescuer herself. In the words of her friend Thomas Huber, when she goes into the mountains, she was beaming. Laura Dahlmeier found her truest self not in the roar of a stadium, but in the vast, imposing silence of the world's highest peaks. She lived with a passion few could understand, fully aware of the risks, and she died in the arena she had chosen. Her story is a tragic reminder of how unforgiving the high mountains can be, but it's also an inspiring story of a life lived to the absolute fullest. Her body remains on Leila Peak, a permanent part of the landscape she loved, a silent monument to a champion who found her peace in her beloved mountains. The stories of adventurers like Laura Dahlmeier are both tragic and inspiring. They remind us of the incredible heights the human spirit can reach. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content that honors the legacies of remarkable people. Let us know in the comments what you'll remember most about Laura's story. Thanks for watching.